Um, I suppose one thing that was beginning to happen in the industry, just as we were going into this project, is net zero projects. Those are a lot more prevalent now. Going in that direction. So I would say that's something that we should certainly consider for the Essex project. But otherwise, the boats are good. It's a nice looking project and it seems to be aging well.
Yeah. Mr. Tyler.
Through the building, this too, right? Through the building enough, it's finished. I think it's one that tremendously well. It's a great discussion outside. Decisions that were made in terms of this, like, test stand the test of time. Absolutely recognized. I'm curious about curious about utilities and how this is new to me. How that's measuring up. Data. Speak to that. Utilities. Utility wise.
Nice.
Should be a little more efficient.
100% more efficient building. Just with the controls we have, the occupancy sensors on 30 sensors, controls and other control lighting, that one's been huge and helpful. Maintenance wise, it's been a little challenging. We've had to replace some mechanical equipment along the way, some unexpected things I wouldn't think we would have to. So we're in the process. You get details, so but that's something learn. We talked to WT Rich as well as Rich kind of seeing that in the projects. You guys have as well. Starting to see that. Just had to replace the circulator, pump, and boiler room. So just things that I expect after 3 years or so. Hopefully that doesn't continue, but somehow we're just kind of keeping our eye on.
Yeah, good lessons learned, but it's actually, yeah. And systems I imagine. So net zero.
Yeah.
So aspirations, the system might be a little different again.
They will be different. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. No fossil fuels. Or
Right.
Can I say one more thing? I think that, we just said it here, the materials, the layout, design, everything, the components were all considered in great depth, not to be exorbitant. There's nothing extraordinarily, there's no gold plating on anything. This is basically what it is. It's well done, well designed, very flexible, looks good, functional. I think that was part of our goal. I think that was part of the lesson we learned from the high school, middle school. We said watching, staying with MSBA guidelines as far as spatial requirements, as far as dollars and cents, all made a difference here. And that kind of flew over onto this job here as well. And we went through extensive. Okay, Ed, you were on the design subcommittee, weren't you on that? And Charlie knew you as well. But we met with the architect, we came up with how many schemes, we did 12 different options, things. It was all really well thought through before we moved. It's great. It's a really great experience.
Was there a previous building on the site?
Was there? Yeah, we did the other building. This one was done in 2 phases. The education people first, leaving some of the common spaces for the cafeteria and gym. It was actually a auditorium, and that one was.
Yes, a lot of the decisions around planning were made by the logistics combined and in on a site that already has operations. That's what happens when you build on a site which has an existing school. Definitely, phasing. I actually think we got too many options. No, I mean, it's sort of one thing I would tell an architect is don't bring more options than he brings an appropriate number of options. Don't bring 20 because it doesn't help. 1,000 options when you know you can get 3 or 4.
They're kind of tired.
But
They're kind of tired.
what they were trying to do. I mean, they were good and they came up with a good scheme and it's great, but why they felt this. I think they wanted to make sure we thought they were doing their job.
From a cost saving standpoint, why wouldn't we just take what we've already created here and just replicate it there? I mean, is it from a square footage standpoint, from a design perspective, the work is done. This is where all of the cost is, right? Or like in the design phase, you spend a lot of money considering ideas. I don't know what our square footage requirements are based on the enrollment numbers that we're looking at, but could we just truly take the design from this building and plop it onto our site?
This is a much bigger building than would end up in Essex. Might be twice the population.
65 or 70,000.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that's so,
It's a bigger building, so it would be pared down. So the MSBA had a program for a while called their model school program. And
I
it was,
remember that. That's kind of where I'm going.
all right, well, it was based on this idea, and it didn't really ever take off. And that's because every site is different. Every circumstance is different. And so it's very, unless you have a wheat field in Nebraska, it's very hard to just plop down a school from somewhere else onto, and particularly if you are building on a site that does already have a school or something, then the shape of this building, you look at it now and you think, oh, it's great, it makes sense. But the shape of the building is driven in large part by how do you get it in next to an existing building and keep the building operating. The building is operating modular, so parts are being torn down. But so it's hard. And the other thing is, it doesn't save a lot in terms of design ultimately, because codes change, and so an architect is going to tell you, well, we might be able to take 10% off our fee. I mean, not cutting it in half, or and then the other. Fee is a great scheme of things, not that big relatively. So we're saving some strength.
but I think there's also the culture piece, like I think some of the design aspects here was taken in response to the Manchester culture and really wanting like the light and airiness that is important to the community. I'd be thoughtful of what the Essex community really wants out of an elementary building and what they want it to look like, rather than just taking this
Right.
walking in.
I think that's true.
Over there.
I think it's true. Every user is different.
But you do have that whole like list of these are classrooms, they're all squares, right?
Well, right. Well, even that you can manipulate classroom shapes, but yes, right. They're 8 grades.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then they just kind of do, I know.
Sounds easy.
It isn't even, I'm sorry.
What? Well, the other question is, do you even need an architect? The other question.
I didn't do that.
Perhaps you can go without one.
Any other questions from us?
I would just, it came up during the walk around and it's probably worth saying, like, I think we put the designers, they did bring us a lot, but we also put them through their paces with having a lot of divergent ideas about what should be in the building. So I think that's always, to Kim's point, them trying to figure out who we are, what the culture is, what the want and the ask is at the time. So one thing I was going to call out kind of on the lessons learned list from the Memorial Building Committee was the design build for Memorial, the design enrollment came in at 335. The committee was really concerned that that was too low a number and anticipating enrollment surges. We know we've been going through a bit of an enrollment decline. That being said, the conversation is shifting and there's concern now with the MBTA project, whether or not we have room in the schools for an anticipated additional 50, 100 students. So I think the decision from the Memorial Building Committee to go with 3 classrooms per grade level, even though that was an add-in, I think it is going to bear out as a good decision in the long run, because we do have the flexibility to absorb any major changes. And MBTA wasn't being discussed. Chapter 40 was being discussed back then, so this was a new entry. So just kind of going on the record with that we have been communicating with people who are looking at impacts of the project, and one of their concerns was that this would be too small, but it couldn't be.
Now, you had mentioned in your early meeting prior to the one I missed that you were interested in considering a study of using this building as a combined elementary school. Is that-
Nobody's retracted that ask and it's still in our letter. So I think we need to go through and
Right.
vet it.
Investigate.
I think this is one more variable that. That's a
Right,
good,
but you could
best
put it
solution.
that-
Over that in population.
No, it sounds like you're trying to expand.
yeah, so if we want to transition into the next, I can kind of give everybody the update of where we are with design enrollment. So at the last meeting, we signed off on the design enrollment that MSBA provided us based on the information we sent to them in the spring. And that number was 250. We signed off, but there was some discomfort still and some emerging information about, you guys from Essex, correct me on whether I'm using the right naming configuration. What was the Van Wyck property with an original projection of 50 bedrooms that we submitted to MSBA that landed us with the design figure 250 has increased to 146 potential bedrooms, which we communicate. Please
I
give us
really
the.
want to correct one comment. It was 50 bedrooms. They perked for 50 houses.
Okay.
So when they did the test pits, it perked for 50 houses, but when they came in with the design, they were looking at 30 houses. And if they go with the OSRD, they can do 36 because they gained it 20%.
Okay.
But they're 4 bedrooms, so it's 100.
It would, I send you an email and you send that back to me because I've been going back and forth to make sure I'm like, 'cause they want it from the town.
Sure.
And what I keep getting is the 50 to 146.
Okay.
And it may just be somebody's way of thinking it and typing it. And
So Lisa will be the best person to send that to you. Do you want to send her the email? And, or do you can
Yeah,
send it to me and I can get.
I
it.
have been communicating with her and Brendan.
Perfect.
So
They're the best people.
anyway, long story short, it looked like the project was escalating beyond what was originally reported in that it went from being in discussion to being highly likely to happen before the board and likely to be completed within 2 to 3 years. After our last meeting, I communicated that we voted as a committee to accept the number. We still had concerns about potential changes in development projects in Essex, and could they confirm that this number could absorb that potential change? Well, that triggered them to say, what is the newest information? And why don't we, to be on the safe side, go back and take another look? So I think similar to where this group was, yes, it's likely that that number isn't going to change or maybe change by 5 kids, but nobody wants to say we didn't take another look at it because the information's changed. So I think that's the best idea. It's not like 1 month is going to make a huge difference in the scheme of things. So they're back reviewing it. They sent me 3 questions, which I shared with Brendan and Lisa. They sent me back the information in with MSBA, and they're going to contact me when they have the revised report. I don't know what to tell you to expect from it, so we'll just kind of write it out, but at least they'll kick the tires.
So the implications are there will be more students than defined by the NSBA right now.
Well, I think it's similar to there's a potential for that the new information on its face would indicate that there may be more kids coming than previously thought. Is that fair, Ruth? I mean, you guys have been listening to the project from the town side. I'm just trying to relay, so if I'm getting it
Sure,
wrong.
I mean, so what we're hearing is at this point, the developer's looking at 36 single-family homes that are 4 bedrooms apiece. I mean, logic would tell you, if it's 144 bedrooms, logic would tell you that a 4-bedroom, you probably are gonna have at least 2 kids in the house. Maybe a 4-bedroom house just doesn't scream retired couple with no kids. So, I mean, maybe it does to some, it seems like it's a home where you're gonna have children, so I think that we're gonna. Which is not good for us, but it's good for the building project.
So I think it's going to help. I know one of our early conversations too is about the 3 different scenarios we're looking at, for the potential using this as a site to absorb all the kids. I think even with the original enrollment projection for Essex, there isn't room for 250 more kids here. So that's not going to work. If now we're anticipating or even have unknown potential enrollment for Manchester side, look, I mean, we would really just be taking pretty big chance of going down to 1 building, but that's for the group to decide. And I don't And we can still explore the pre-K, 3, 4, 5 piece, but again, if we're looking at 100 kids, they may not all come to elementary school, but they may all. So I think we're trying to work our way through, but as we go through the process, the more information becomes available to us to help inform the decision making. So where we stand now is we're likely to go before the board in December. It would be December 13th. Get our official, you've completed your eligibility phase, you've done everything we've asked, you've signed off on the documents, you're ready to go into the first phase of feasibility, which is putting the project in together. So that's where we stand now. Anybody else have thoughts and comments or new information, things I should relay, things that aren't sitting right with you about where we are with enrollment?
Can I ask a question? It's not necessarily about enrollment, but something that has come up at each of the meetings. And I know when I walk away from a meeting, sometimes I wonder, where's the board or committee sitting on this particular topic? And I'm wondering if it would be helpful for you, as the lead, to have kind of a straw poll of where this committee sits on the merger of bringing, the students here, putting 4 and 5 here versus like it just staying in Essex and not merging. Would it be helpful for you to feel where the committee is versus, I know that you're doing the study because I know you need the information to provide back to the community, but would it be helpful for you to know where we all stand?
I'm going to ask my friends who work with MSBA. At this point, it doesn't matter. We have to go through the process.
Gotta do the due diligence.
You gotta do the due diligence, but every time she brings it up, I don't want to feel like I'm kind of rolling my eyes, like, that's not what the towns wanted back when we voted for this, so why are we changing it before the finish line?
That's the school committee, right?
Okay.
They charge us.
Then it's not my fight to have, but I'm gonna just like keep going.
I think there'll be,
When it's writing, everybody's sort of done and studied, you can say, well, we studied it.
but I appreciate that.
So in terms of the design enrollment projection, they're gonna get back to you with the number, correct?
Yeah, they'll reissue us a letter like the last one for me to bring forward to this group.
I mean, the only other question is there anything else working out there in Essex that hasn't been identified?
Nothing of that magnitude. We definitely have stuff available, smaller parcels, yeah. The one that we're reasoning in some of our residential zoning district, as they get carved out at fall town meeting, if it happens, we'll see what happens. So we have one parcel. It's the Harley property on 133. That's beautiful and scenic, but it's a huge piece of land. And, it's, if it got developed with their own kind of treatment plant or something, you don't know how many houses you can get. But that's all mythical numbers. We don't have, other than knowing it's a huge parcel of land, we don't have anything on the horizon.
Right.
This one is huge, and this is likely happening. I mean, the developers have spent a ton of money doing all of the testing of the site. They've already met the planning board level with through the bylaws, all of the boards and committees they had to meet with were at the table. They were able to ask questions. They saw all the designs. They narrowed it to a design. So it's moving forward pretty, I would say, it's a definite.
I think the timeline too, the 2 to 3, because that's right when you would be building.
I know.
Can I ask you, you mentioned the MBTA potential, what that is, what's your thoughts on it? I think my thoughts, because I'm intimately involved with it.
In terms of how it would impact the school,
Right. What's your thought?
we will adapt. I think we have the facility space. We were up to 1,500 students at one point, so we can manage students in classrooms. I mean, if everyone shows up in the 4th grade, it's going to be tough, but I don't think that will happen, right? Because if we get 100 kids, they'll probably be distributed throughout the grade level. So I think you don't know until you know. Public schools don't run on the private school model of enrollment management. We have to be ready to adapt and change and make the school accessible for whoever comes in front of us. So we're ready for it.
I think that I can tell you without giving too much out, because there's a big topic of discussion right now. The propensity study, I don't know if you're familiar with it. In other words, what are the effects if they put down the MBTA zone in Manchester? What's the effect going to be over time? And it's called a propensity study. It's done by an outside consultant, and they've given us the tentative results on it. It appears that there's really not that much of effect on us over a period of 20 years. So it's not something that you put in place and hordes of kids would be at the school out the door, wherever you go. So it doesn't seem like it's gonna have that much of an implication.
I think it's the contrarian view, that's sort of worst casing the numbers and projecting something that might be traumatic.
Yeah, it's hard, having been through all the intimate details of it for the last couple of months. I'm not on the workforce, task force that came up with this thing, but I have been interviewed, hearing, listening to all of what they say, and there is, if you just go by the numbers, if you do this, but if you look at the detail, the way it's planned, each one of these sub-districts, how they're planned, there seems like there's very little chance that it's gonna be massive, putting 2-story houses, 3-story houses up there and filling with living units. It just doesn't seem like it's likely. The propensity study bears that out. So I'm not sure it's, no longer sure, but I guess to say, I'm not sure it's worth worrying about it. It's from management.
When we had our big spike, that like 08 to about 12, 13 period, that was 20% growth in that short period of time. And we managed through that with lesser facilities. So I think we're well positioned to manage what comes.
Yeah, I think you're right.
And there's flexibility in the agreement. I mean, you have that came before, but you could be flexible if you needed to be within the agreement as it stands now. And if you had another building in Essex, it's like, listen, that's some flexibility. I think you have, there's some options for us.
Yeah, it's a great
Between
opportunity.
the three buildings. There's flexibility in the high school too. Remember?
I think our,
Well, tell us about it.
We don't bring it up.
Yeah.
No, there's classroom flexibility, but some people.
it's about the time. You mentioned the timing. So that school was built before flexible space and before was kind of the thing. And also I just don't think we were in a position as leaders at the time to fully inform the committee about the need for specialized learning spaces for special ed. We were in a different place then than we are now. And I would say that is one of the largest consumers of space in a building is the small specialized programs. And having the
Fair
space
enough.
specially designed. It's just is.
Say something. Okay,
I
so
would say one comment that I have, and I'm going to be my broken record about this. I think the greatest enrollment challenge will be is when they do require universal pre-K. Because that's where I think you'll see the biggest influx at one point
say
in
that
time,
again.
When they require universal pre-K.
or offer universal pre-K. It probably won't be required, mandated that you have to attend, but the offer there, because I think it's a financial assist to young families.
But right now, Pam, pre-K is self-funded, so it's private pay.
Yes.
Correct?
But unless you qualify for services.
Unless you
Yeah.
qualify for services. But I guess the point I'm making is, even if you had, joking, but even if you had 6 pre-K classrooms, right? At this point, they're all being self-funded by the families that are sending the children there. So it just goes to help the operating budget of those rooms. If at
Yes.
some point it becomes state mandated, then it is what it is.
Right.
It's mandated anyway, so
So
it
it's part of
doesn't matter.
Isn't part of the issue it's mandated full day?
That was kindergarten.
Okay, so it's not gonna be, no one's ever talked about full day.
We've been full day.
Oh, you have?
Yep. Forever.
But one of the things I think as a district that we kind of advocated for was not tuitioning. And you used to have, in like Ipswich, there was a tuition for kindergarten was full day, half of the day. They had required half day. And then tuition for the full, or for the other half of it. And as in Manchester, Essex did not want to do that, so there was full day for everybody. So I think when we want parity, equity, all those things for everybody. So I think in terms of the guiding principles, that would be something that I would advocate.
think there's just gonna be a point where it's not a choice, that we won't be able to charge.
Correct, but right now, they are paying for pre-K.
Completely self, it's a yes, completely self-funded.
It's self-funded, so
Yeah.
it would still be equitable, because it would be the same as it is here.
Yeah, both programs would run in each building the same as they do here until the point in which we have to make the changeover. I'm just forecasting that when that happens, that's might be when we see a large influx all at once.
And it'll be a decision during the design phase if it gets that far, which is, do you plan for those pre-K classrooms or do you don't?
It's gonna cost you money.
It's gonna cost-
Right. No, but it also is extra space. So let's say that in that year, you need, just throwing out numbers, you need 4 pre-K rooms, but all of a sudden, your enrollment of those younger kids rolls off. It could be a first grade classroom, it could be a second. So I mean, and I understand that they're modeled for little kids in little spaces, but it's useful space. It could be a storage closet. I mean, it's extra.
Yep.
Put a record on this short, it's fine.
It's not a new, it's kind of to me, it's very exciting to think about, that phase of education. So it's just something to keep in mind, whether it's like, there's a design piece in here of if we had to expand, right? Was it go up? Wow. So we will have to build into that design some, contingency plan in case you'd ever have to expand the building. So it may just be keeping that in mind with where things could be within the 15-year lifespan of the building.
When you're in your meetings and you're hearing about mandatory pre-K, what kind of time frame you generally?
Well, Wheeling's got bills and money out there right now to push different economic centers toward implementing. So I'm seeing that as an indicator of there will be money, there will be a push, because I think it's not, we don't need to get into it, but I think it's tied to larger political winds and where things go and where mindsets are. But I think it's being seen not only as good for kids, but an economic stimulus for young families to have a cost-free opportunity so that they can get out of the workplace. So
You want to talk about the next steps?
I do. So I hope you guys can see this, and I will send out, after this meeting, you're going to get an email with a couple of things. We have minutes from the first 2 meetings that you can review. It's okay. I was working on some 2 minutes. That's all right. So we'll have minutes for our next meeting. And this is just kind of a quick overview. You'll get this timeline. You'll get a document that goes into detail about OPM selection. And we're going to send you our old request for services when we went out to bid for onboarding the OPM for the memorial projects, just so you see what the next phase of the work is. So we're a little bit of a holding period until 12/13 till we get moved forward. But during that time, we can start to get organized around the project manager selection. So my thinking is that at our 11/26 meeting, the school building committee would appoint a selection subcommittee. So what we use, and Gordon, you alluded to this in an earlier meeting. When we go through the process, there are times where we'll have different subcommittees focused on different aspects of work, and that's where we'll try to leverage the expertise around the table. So what we want to do for OPM selection is take volunteers, and subcommittee can be less, it just has to be one less than half the committee, so we don't have a full quorum of the body. To gather and go through the paperwork and standards analysis process for choosing the OPM. So if we appoint a subcommittee, we can talk a little bit more about the responsibilities in a minute at the 11/26 meeting. From 11/26 to 1/8, we would work on developing the request for services. We would post on the 9th so that the advertisement for the RFS goes live on the 15th. Build in some informational meetings for potential candidates, a question and response period, and then have the responses due. So basically the proposals in by 1/29, with the hope that we could have the subcommittee meet on 1/30, either in a daytime meeting or an early evening meeting to go through the proposals and whittle it down to a recommendation of 2 or 3 to be brought before the full board, where we then would schedule public interviews. So they come in, they do their full presentation, the full board sees it. Whether it's 2 or 3, we might want to do it on 1 or 2 nights. And then the board, using our rubric, will make a selection and vote to move forward to offer a contract to one of the firms. So that will all take place between now and the first couple of weeks of March until we get into a fully executed
Do you
contract.
need permission from the MSBA to proceed with this step, or do you have it already?
We do need permission, and that's what we should get on the 13th.
Okay.
But I think we're moving along just fine, and we have enough templates and work from previous
Oh, yeah,
From the
no.
that we can kind of prep it up and just kind of get ready. So it's like setting the stage for the 13th. So if we set the committee, we start to look at a draft of what we would use. Do you think we're putting ourselves out there?
No, I'm just curious.
It's not like we're going to issue anything.
No, I think it's supposed to don't issue anything officially, publicly, but
And a lot of this is done more at the administrative level. So Michelle will get the fun job of kind of,
like writing the FR, yeah.
yeah. And then I think what we did was send it out to the full group for feedback, and she would take the feedback, or Avi and I would take the feedback, and we'd tune it up and we'd send it out again. So it isn't like we all have to sit at the table and wordsmith it. It's a template and it's pretty prescriptive. It's just coming to some determination on what we're looking for in the firm and making sure that those elements are in there so that when we have our standards rubric and are kind of assessing what goes forward and what doesn't, that we've represented. So that's the next big chunk of work. From there, they come on board and then they're going to take over the designer process, which follows a very similar kind of set of steps, but the OPM will drive it. My guess is we would have the OPM, the designer onboarded by June, July, if everything works out, which would give us the full next year to engage in all of those iterations. You know, kind of go through that checklist of what's in our feasibility to-dos, rule things out, roll things in, start on design. And you'd be looking at the 27, calendar year 27 for your, is it SD? Schematic
Yep.
design that you bring forward.
That's what you bring forward to the board to get approval.
Yep. And you could probably have that ready to have your choice of doing an April town meeting in 27 or a fall town meeting in 27. You think that's too long or too?
Oh, not too short. I was wondering if it was too long. It's a long way away. Feels like. You're saying the designers on board in the summer of this year, 25.
25.
So you're giving them almost 2 full years. I think probably could ask, I think you can do it.
We can
Well, it's such fast small. I think you can do it faster than that. It's like,
So we might be able to be ready to go for fall 26.
yeah, sure you could. I mean, certainly these, everything with the MSA is prescriptive, but, they have all these windows where they have review time, but nonetheless, I bet you could do a year and a half or less.
And just one question, Charlie, this is a question for you, actually. Is the design selection process done with the NSBA?
Yes, yeah, it is
In that
different.
same public forum,
Yes.
they present and we ask questions and.
Well, you only ask questions if you're the person on who goes to, who's on the Zoom call.
All the time is a Zoom meeting?
Now, the
Everything.
interviews are now Zoom interviews, but there's only 3 local representatives allowed, and that's pretty prescribed too, isn't it? It's the superintendent of schools and the town official, presumably an Essex town official, and they have a school committee
So it's Avi, me, and.
last time. Anyway, there's 3 people. And the rest of this committee has nothing to do with it other than watching at home and getting popcorn.
So interesting.
Right.
It's quite awesome, it's fascinating.
And they have,
That's fast.
and they have to approve the OPM too. Like we'll go through our process, then they'll check.
But
to
you
make sure.
get the interview, the OPM as opposed to the MSBA, designers, the MSBA essentially. Right.
My understanding is the OPM, they just want to make sure that they have the bandwidth to actually do the work
Right.
and are in good standing.
Right.
So that's the exciting work before us. For those who are also heavily engaged in budget season, it actually slots in nicely. Like we'll finish one aspect of the budget, like we'll have tentative budget, then this will pick up. We'll go through full budget, close that out, and then this will pick up again. So it'll be kind of a tag team of activities between um, December and January.
You just update those years to 2025.
Oh, yeah, thank you. At least it wasn't 17. Because what I did was I did use the memorial, and we are within, if we hit up these benchmarks, we'll be within a week of when we executed that contract. So it's falling in line, which is why I did think it would be the fall, but
That was fall.
it feels like we might have a little bit more to do during our feasibility study this time around, so I don't know if that will play through the process. You don't think so?
I think that can still get through.
At what point, or you may have they already, has MSBA said renovation versus new?
We're not even in the process yet.
That's far down the
We're
line.
still in eligibility.
Diligence.
They make you go through all the options. They don't ultimately decide. The district decides. And they, they just want to make sure you look at all. They just, you have to do a straight renovation, which they never take because of course, most of the buildings are already too small, which is why the district's trying to expand them. They make you do a renovation addition, they make you do a replacement, at least. And then the question is how many additional lines. And then you pick that menu.
So for those who go through the process on a regular basis, what have I missed about this next chunk? And then when we think about an OPM selection team, what does that look like? What's the skill set? Who's interested? We don't have to decide anything tonight, but any recommendations from people who have experience in this?
Who was on that for Warren?
I was like,
Oh, yeah. Probably George.
I did all the views.
Yeah.
And it spent a while sleepless night reading. So, and the contractors.
Yeah.
No, I actually recused myself because I felt like it was awkward for me to make it.
Why did that?
Because I was just thinking about what is the skill set? I mean,
I think anyone who's no experience, has any experience in the industry. Ultimately, they're the owner's representative, right? And so you want to make sure they're familiar with, I mean, what the sort of qualifications aren't that complex because do you have experience doing MSBA work? Do you have a team that's done this before? It's not rocket science. I think when the rubber typically hits when the rubber typically hits the road is when you meet the team, the people on a particular team, because it's always about it right. So all the organizations will be qualified, all of them will have experience, all of them will look great, all of them have great pictures. But do you get people you feel good about working?
Yeah.
but you're not seeing people you're doing that.
No, the paper review, I think it's interesting.
It's, they're all gonna be sterling and all.
They're right. The quals-
But you expect, and you hope.
It is, it's just like the resumes, like the first look at the resumes.
We don't create the short, we don't create the short list. When we're gonna send it to them. It goes out.
Yes, for public procurement.
It goes out, so we get back. Then there's a short list process that we.
Right, that would be with the-
Evaluation, short letters, then we go to.
Correct. So you'll get
Well,
whatever you get and you.
I think we go through the step last time. We did a subcommittee, shortlisted the proposals that we got. So if we only get 3 and you want to move 3 to the full committee, but there was like the paper review team that sat down and said, okay, these 3 are going forward. And that's where you might do an initial, if I remember, like an initial reference check. Or you might use some common knowledge that you have of the organization and the project they're doing. And then we said, and that group says, okay, we want to see ABC team, EXY team, and, the Smith team. So let's send them to the full board and we'll sit here one night and they'll come in and give us their pitch. And then this board will have the final say of the finalists, so to speak.
But wasn't that pretty scripted? We had like a.
Yep.
We had to fill something out and we weren't allowed to cut the budget.
Charlie's right.
In the end, it's intuition, though. I mean, you can be living with the this person professionally for a while,
Yeah.
you really want to make sure you like them. I mean,
Yeah.
even if they don't fit every box, you really want to make sure you like them.
Yeah, and Michelle will be one of the people that deals with them the most.
So you
I mean, we're-
dealt with 3 great
Yeah,
firms.
we were on the phone with them almost daily.
Yeah. So that kind of relationship is important. And right, Pam has to be very good. So I think you can't get too caught up in the bells and whistles. You need to realize this relationship. They're serving you.
Are there any other thoughts or questions?
So between now and
The 26th, think about, I'm going to send you all the documents to review. Take a look and see if you're interested in serving on subcommittee. Let me know.
you're talking about the 26th of November.
November. We could probably do that as a video, as a virtual meeting. Just to jump on and I can give you a quick update. We've learned anything from MSBA, if that's sped up at all. And we can go over who would like to serve on the subcommittee. And the committee can formally vote that group in. That should wrap that up. Then we're really waiting for.
I think there was a lot of trust in the kids that were on the subcommittees.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That's
so-
a good question.
There's, you know,
There was a good diversity of professional capabilities and knowledge base. So it all worked quite well.
yeah. And the 26th of November is 2 days before Thanksgiving, right? I think virtual's good.
Virtual.
Okay, anything else?
That's all I have for tonight.
There a motion to adjourn?
Second.
Second. You got those? Huh? Sure. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
Thanks for the
Yeah, can you guys read them because I don't have anybody at work.